Hey guys, Ryan and Greg here, back for another breakdown. Today we are breaking down episode 8 of Double Feature. It is called Inside.
Before we get started, of course, just like always, watch the episode first, then come on back here. There are spoilers ahead. Let's do this. This episode kicks off in Palm Springs in 1963, so we're almost a decade past the point where we were with Ike. Now he is no longer president, of course, and he has a visit on the golf course from none other than Richard Nixon. We got to have Richard Nixon in this series at some point. We knew it was coming.
Yeah, and Richard Nixon was Ike Eisenhower's vice president during his 2 terms.
Mm-hmm.
So they're both out of office right now. Of course, Nixon will become president later on, but this is kind of like they're dealing with the ramifications of this treaty with the aliens, right? And we don't know exactly what happens. We find out later this episode exactly what happened over the course of those presidential terms. They're still golfing, one of the presidential pastimes. And Richard Nixon, what did you think about Craig Sheffer's performance as Richard Nixon? He was also famously in, I believe, One Tree Hill, which has some connections to American Horror Story actors. But what did you think about the Richard Nixon?
He was Uncle Keith on One Tree Hill. I am all game for almost pretty much any Richard Nixon take. Honestly, I love Frost Nixon's my favorite, but next to that, honestly, Futurama. I always think of Futurama. I'm sorry.
Nixon's back!
So right from the jump, they bring up black budget, Ryan, and let's tell everyone at home what the black budget is for when it comes to U.S. politics and the government itself.
Yeah, that's like a real thing, Greg. Black budget is basically for like military operations or covert operations, basically any research, military research and technology, stuff like that. So there's like allocated money that the government doesn't need to tell anyone about what's going on there. And it's just like kind of hush hush within secret in the presidential office, though, the close group of people. So basically things are starting to leak and people are starting to find out and there's mention of Hoover, obviously the FBI kind of noticing what's going on and where's money being spent. And obviously when you're dealing with something like as big as the aliens coming to the United States, to the planet, that's going to leak out, right? And there's going to be resources will be moved in order to deal with that stuff. So, we can only assume after almost nearly a decade, that information gets out and certain people find out about what's going on, really. So they now have to deal with the current president, which is Jack Kennedy, that we see in the following scene.
That's right, JFK, and he was president from 1961 to 1963, Ryan. Okay, Richard Nixon doesn't want to talk to JFK about any of this stuff. He's worried about, the Roman Catholic Church and all these things are going to come into play. And, of course, Richard Nixon's, he's playing just a monster right from the jump. Once they meet everyone in the room, Nixon immediately tells them about his trip to New York.
Oh, just peachy. I think I actually spotted an American citizen the other day.
So basically they come to JFK and have to reveal what went down 9 years prior. And basically he doesn't take it well. He didn't know this was really gonna be revealed to him. Obviously he thought it was kind of a hazing prank, right?
Yep.
But basically we learn here that Ike made a treaty with the aliens, and basically they are allowed to abduct, experiment, take, impregnate 5,000 humans per year, and that guarantees the safety of the rest of America, of nearly 200 million people. But there's an exchange here. We get alien technology, and the idea here is that this kind of is AHS's twist on history, right? On the America's kind of resurgence into domination,
from the World War II. World War II.
World power.
Yeah.
So all this technological breakthroughs, it wasn't scientific breakthroughs, it was actually given to us from a higher power, from extraterrestrials, and that's kind of how we navigated the different world wars, Korean War, and then Cold War and all that kind of stuff. So an interesting twist on kind of U.S. history and world history, and then it's just way too much for JFK to download at once right there. It's just overwhelming.
So where does he go to, cool off, to chill out for a second?
Of course.
Before you even see her, everyone at home's going, Marilyn's in this shot. I know it.
Oh, yeah.
Here she comes. And what an entrance. So this episode, right from there, you're like, okay, this is where we're going. This is what we're going to do today. Conspiracy theorists out there are having a time of their life. I thought this episode was directed by or written by Dan Aykroyd for a moment.
The Air Force cannot just come out and admit that there are extraterrestrial beings far in advance of our culture that have built these machines.
Now, Marilyn is played by Alicia Sofer, who you'll remember if you watched Feud with Betty and Joan. So if you saw that, now that means I'm going to say this is canon now. I'm going to say this is an AHS and Ryan Murphy universe. They are all together, same universe here. We can connect them. That's where I'm going with now. We can say Betty and Joan Feud is part of AHS.
Yeah, I'm with you, Greg. That's the crossover right there. That's the connection. I don't care what Ryan says. If he says no, that's not true. But this confirms it. This confirms it, guys. Feud is in the AH universe. Yep. I think there's the greater Ryan Murphy universe is its own thing, right? They're all connected.
I have a feeling, yeah.
We also learn here that Marilyn Monroe has her own kind of little side story that she's kind of. Gives motivation and kind of pushes our characters to do what they do. Pushes JFK to kind of want to reveal the truth. The pillow talk with Marilyn. He just reveals all secrets of the U.S. government. It's pretty crazy, but she says that she kind of had her own run-in when she was a young child. That no one believed her, but she said at nighttime, this little teddy bear was near her, and then a flash of light, like we've seen in all these other instances. So she's like, you know what? I kind of believe in this other species out there, this other extraterrestrials, and that you kind of need to be honest and truthful. That you need to tell the American public. So obviously, Richard Nixon and Dwight Eisenhower, they don't want the information ever to come out. What it would do to their legacies, how it would tarnish their image. How could they do this? How could they make this treaty with this species and give up Americans?
Boy, I wonder what's going to happen to JFK. I wonder what's going to happen to John here. I guess he probably should stop. I'm just saying, because then your mind starts going like, I wonder what JFK does next. Oh yes, the race to the moon. We're going to space, and Nixon has had enough at that point. He calls Ike up on the phone, and I think we know where this is going.
We need to be prepared for anything, sir.
One small thing, this has nothing to do with AHS, or I just noticed that that shot of Marilyn as a kid, it gave me huge Twin Peaks: The Return vibes, and I without any spoilers, I will just say I was so worried a bug was just going to crawl into that room. That's all. I'll leave it there.
Before we move any further, guys, there is one continuity error because unfortunately, in this world, it's 1963 and Marilyn Monroe is talking to JFK, but in fact, in the real world, Marilyn Monroe had already passed away, unfortunately. She passed away in 1962 of an apparent overdose. So, they kind of play. I don't know if they did this on purpose, if it's just kind of their own universe, or if they kind of messed up here, but it's a small little detail. We don't need to harp on it too much, Greg, but it's just a small little detail that changes. It changes the history here, at least in this world.
Yeah, it's like complaining about how does time traveling work, and maybe like the MCU when you're dealing with Thor, the god of thunder. So we return to Ike's house, microwave oven. Ryan, you were correct last week when you thought, okay, this is all alien tech, and that's exactly what it is. They're watching TV. It's just a night at home. And then, of course, we know that JFK is in Dallas that day, and sure enough, they get the news right then and there that he has been assassinated.
Yeah, the interesting thing here is that, Mamie, she kind of puts two and two together like immediately, right? She kind of like knows exactly what happened. Is this related to what's going on? There are no secrets, we think, in that household amongst those two. Later on, we find out that she kind of goes behind his back, but you can tell that like Ike is really struggling with this decision to do that, to even bring it out, let JFK know about it, because he knows that the forces inside the government have horrible consequences for JFK in the situation, and kind of the concern that he would kind of not be tight-lipped about it and let the American public know, and what it would mean for all the personal legacies of all these people. So. Yeah, just a heartbreaking moment in the American Horror Story world, the universe, how they explain the assassination of one of the most popular presidents we've had like it was because of this kind of the idea that they might be revealed of this whole alien treaty.
Yeah, this is every conspiracy theory you can think of was just put in a giant bowl in this episode and shook around. Like every single one of them that are out there, these are every single one of these have been claimed by people swearing that this is what went down. So American Horror Story was just perfect for this.
Now, Greg, now we go back 9 years prior, basically where we left off the episode prior with the timeline of 1954. Amelia Earhart just came back to the facility, and they're kind of just all like scrambling to figure out what's going on. There's this possessed housewife floating down the hallways, Maria, and she basically gives them the ultimatum there and tells them, we will exchange the technology, you just give us the people, we are dying. Basically, their population, we could gather this much from some of the trailer footage as well, that their race, their population is dying, that they're looking to kind of build a new race, build a new hybrid species between the aliens and the humans, and create these hybrids that can then, be better than them. The catch is basically you got to just give us people every year. We won't destroy you guys, but we want to create this new race of people. And basically, Amelia Earhart, we find out that test subject died, the baby inside of her. It was a kind of monster. Now, there's a weird thing going on here. We don't know exactly what happens to the babies inside the humans. Some of them end up becoming kind of half hybrids that we see later on in the episode, Greg, but some of them, like we see here in this instance, just become total alien monsters and like chest bursters. I think they missed the big opportunity here.
Yes,
they missed the big opportunity here for like bursting out of Amelia Earhart's chest. Like I thought they're gonna do some alien stuff here, but we see the kind of the results of what happened in that room, and it's not good.
I like that quick little shot they had of the little alien baby trying to jump after Ike.
I mean, don't forget, Greg, like, Ike, he was in the military. His background was in the military. He was, commander of the Allied forces in World War II. So, of course he's packing heat. You got to take that gun from that guy and just like, he's going to go in there and try to save anything he can, and then he just takes that alien down.
So the tech that America got here is stealth tech, fiber optics, and the microwave oven. I hope there's more down the line, I'm assuming, but that's awesome.
Yeah, Greg, this is a good chuckle on my end over here. Like, I love how it's like the microwave oven just for people to cook at home, the consumers, right?
Yeah.
Just to and then the other, obviously stealth tech, fiber optics can be used for a variety of things. So obviously most namely the military, for the U.S. military to just kind of expand and get better and get dominant across the whole world. Fiber optics for information, communicating across everything. But it's just funny that the microwave oven was thrown in there.
Sure.
Okay,
cool.
Let's be able to cook frozen meals much easier. And this is the whole the revolution of people actually cooking out of a box instead of cooking homemade meals. This was kind of let's just grab one of those all-American meals out of the freezer and put it in the thing. It's just such a funny twist on this whole thing right here.
So what's coming next. The aliens are going to tweak TVs somehow. If they haven't already. They already got on the radio waves. We know this from the broadcast that we got from FX earlier. So what else are they going to do here?
Is it the color TV? Is it finally getting color? And then we find out they made Facebook.
Oh, they're going to add in all of those. You're right. They're going to do all that.
And then we find out the aliens created social media.
Yep. Steve Jobs shows up later. So there we go. So we know.
Snap. Yeah, the aliens do have a role in the iPhone. Now, I mentioned earlier that there's no secrets within the Eisenhower household, but clearly that's wrong. Mamie has her own motivations and kind of a plan here. She wants to tell Richard Nixon behind Ike's back to kind of push him in the direction to do the treaty, sign off on it, make sure everything's good. It's the lesser of two evils in terms of hey, you're sacrificing 5,000 Americans, but you're saving the rest of us, and it means American dominance, and it means that the Russians, during the Cold War scare, there's no Russian emergence there. So she's just pushing that way. Nixon, this is now the origins of how Nixon finds out about the whole thing. Ike then eventually, in the most random hysterical way, because of the handkerchief that he's using to wipe down his sweat, Ike finds out about it as well. So then he comes home, and then the big shoe drops here, Greg. We find out that Mamie is an alien or has been controlled by an alien. Now, the question I have for you, Greg, is when do you think that she was being controlled by the alien throughout the course, like what we've seen, or is it just like a random thing, or did they know, like, hey, we need to talk to the leader? The last episode was called "Take Me to Your Leader." Do we need to get as close to him and kind of get into his ear? Is that why, like, they would target Mamie?
Yeah, is it like, are they just like, beaming in information to her right now, like a speaker, like they can control humans that way? Is this like a, body snatchers thing? So is his wife gone? Is the first lady, is she out of the picture? But they do say that she's still there. She's still in here somewhere. Yeah. It's up in the air a little bit because I can't tell whether or not she's gone or not.
What makes the most sense to me is that last episode we talked about those broadcasts, the KHS broadcasts that they kind of the Easter eggs that we found in some of those that they released before the episode aired. And it sounds like there's some subliminal messaging and targeting going on in those messages. And we see in the Eisenhower household that the TV is always on, the news bulletins are going, the radio's on, all these type of things. So I think that we're supposed to gather that there's some sort of, they're kind of motivating her to act a certain way until then we eventually see an actual alien, eyes rolling in the back of the head. Now she's being controlled by something. Whereas before, maybe she was just kind of slowly being told a direction to push her husband and president of the United States.
That all depends on you, Mr. President.
Now we're back in present day, and we are moving. These babies are on the way, apparently, as we get back with our Ivy Leaguers. They are in a car. They're on their way over with Jamie to go get an ultrasound to see what's going on. Okay, I'll be it.
Greg, I don't know why there's any, like, how are they even questioning the fact if they're pregnant or not? They're literally, like, all their stomachs are, like, visibly pregnant, all of them. This has got to be the most terrifying thing ever. I like how they're trying to, like, hide, like, they take Jamie there, right? But they're all trying to hide
the
their
sweater.
own pregnancies.
The way they're hiding them. I love it.
So funny. That whole exchange is hysterical. And then we get the nurse or doctor kind of checking on the ultrasound. Says that she hears 2 heartbeats. They actually, when she leaves the office, because she's, like, weirded out by what she's seeing, they then use the ultrasound on each other, and then Troy has a literal, like, alien baby inside of him. Now, this whole section kind of reminded me, Greg, of Murder House, when, Vivian Harmon has the Antichrist inside of her with the other baby as well, the 2 twins, and
she faints.
The nurse faints, yeah, and it kind of reminded me of the whole time, like, there's a lot of there's just, like, the eerie feeling of being in the room with the doctor as they're looking at the ultrasound, and there's a literal monster inside of you.
And now that we have the aliens, we need a little bit of a payoff here. So we have the men in black storming in the room. But this is AHS. So, hey, we got to change this out. We can't have the little, the flashing light thing. You got to switch that up to just straight up a gun. America. So just take care of it with a gun. That'll make everyone forget everything as well, I guess. Yeah,
seriously, that's super morbid. But yeah, they just basically kill the doctor right there on site. There's no evidence. They take the Ivy Leaguers away, and then we wake up and they're in a totally stark white, clean, looks like an Apple Store vibe. They're all basically hooked up to these machines. They're floating, suspended in midair. It really reminded me, Greg, of Asylum and all the autopsy, not the autopsy, the experimental things that the aliens were doing on Alma, on Kit Walker, way back in Grace as well, way back in Asylum. So it kind of matches up with what we saw the aliens doing to humans then. They're just basically in this area where they're incubating, right? Waiting for the pregnancies to come out, waiting for them to be ready to give birth.
You could say that Alma was that's exactly what happened to her, the same scenario, but it just felt like, again, like a hazy dream to her. So she thought she was floating in water and all these things. I can see that now they're trying to explain everything here. And I'm not sure if they're retconning here, but they're definitely going back, it seems, and explaining why certain things in at least Asylum, why in season 2 we got aliens, and then from there on out we didn't hear a thing about them. Now they're explaining that, apparently.
It's a monster.
Don't say that.
Angelica Ross is back. You can hear her voice right there. From the jump, you're like, okay, there's why you have this giant helmet on. I can't wait to see what's going on next. And then you, Ryan, had a theory of who Angelica Ross. She's playing Theta, by the way, on this season, on part 2. Now, are there any connections with part 1?
I don't know. I go back and forth on this if there is an actual connection to the first half. I feel like they're going to force a connection at the end of this whole thing, that they're going to want to tie it all together, which I don't necessarily know that it needs to have that. You know, if you're going to the movies to see a double feature, or you're doing a double feature at home, there doesn't need to be like an actual like hard connection. Maybe some thematic connections there, but like the actual like, you know, characters that are crossing over, it doesn't need to happen here. So they might do it though, but the idea here that I saw floating around the internet, some people had, was maybe it's the chemist, the offspring of the chemist, or an experiment gone wrong with the chemist. We know the chemist did work with the U.S. military, right, on some secret program or secret thing. I'm guessing black budget style stuff, right, Greg? So, you know, maybe there is some connection here that we'll see later in the season. But at this point, right now, we know, and we find out later in this episode, that Theta is a hybrid, half human, half alien, came out of this experimental phase that the aliens were doing on human beings. So if it was a chemist, maybe that's a nice tie-in, but I don't know how I feel about that completely.
Well, the thing is, too, is that you have to keep in mind that Theta, that means the program, unless they just want the program to end where it's just, you know, literally half human, half alien hybrid, then they've succeeded. But I'm assuming there's more to that, and now it's present day, and we don't know the age of Theta, but we're curious of like how far have they gone in their technology this far along? How far have they gone in the evolution of this new line, this new creation? We don't know just yet, but Theta's given us a clue here. They're not. I don't think they're there. They haven't perfected it just yet. Obviously,
you've been chosen. This is an opportunity to save an entire planet.
Greg, we touch on the production design here. Stark white. Very clean. Everyone's dressed in white except for the men in black, of course, who are packing heat. But everyone's, you know, pregnant, obviously, men and women. And then we see, speaking of Apple Store, as I said earlier, Steve Jobs just shows up randomly talking to Leslie Grossman's Calico at the table here. What do you think is the implication of popping Steve Jobs into this whole alien experiment, underground secretive thing that's going on here? Why show Steve Jobs here?
When he talks to Calico, and we're trying to figure out, okay, did he sell off his Apple Store employees or something to the aliens? Did he make a deal with them? Who knows? I just thought that, okay, they beamed him up at some point, and now he's been there ever since when it passed in AHS World.
I honestly think, Greg, that the implication here, and it's obviously a joke, the whole thing is a sly nod to the technology that a lot of these companies invented. But I think the idea here is that the aliens gave him this technology in order to make the iPhones and the iPods and all this stuff, and like he just maybe pointed them in the direction of a few Apple employees they thought were good candidates. This is wild stuff.
This is crazy. And can I point out that we're trying to be you felt like you were trying to be sensitive to Steve Jobs and everyone over this subject, but we just glazed over the whole thing where Nixon did JFK, and everyone's cool. We're all cool with that. We're like, okay, all right, yeah. I buy that.
You're right.
Now, we got to talk to Leslie Grossman this week, and she brought up Calico here and what we can expect from this character. She couldn't say much, but let's play it.
I can tell you that my character's name is Calico, and Calico has led a really sort of interesting existence. And I will say that she's, in my opinion, sort of the diametric opposite of an Ursula. Like I have a lot of compassion and love for Calico, and you'll see why.
And of course, you can watch the full interview right here on the channel as well.
Calico does reference one more thing that we've heard in the AHS universe before, Greg. She brings up In Search Of, the TV show that was in the 70s, which we heard back in AHS 1984, if you remember, towards the tail end of that season, which kind of like gave us, I think this is the connection. I think that episode was the one that we were going to get aliens again. They're going to talk about like the Loch Ness Monster, aliens, all that kind of stuff. Unexplained, unsolved mysteries. So to get that little name drop here, that reference In Search Of that we heard prior, was a good little fun Easter egg from previous seasons.
Now, Calico does drop a big bit of information about how, we thought it was like time travel, jumping people back and forth and stuff like that because of Amelia Earhart. Not really. It's more of when you're with the aliens, time just stops for you. You're just in a long time loop wherever you're at right now, wherever they have them, where you don't age at all. So Calico's been there since the 70s, and now we have, of course, Steve Jobs there. So who knows how long these kids are going to be there. I'm assuming they're going to break out. I'm just calling it now. I think these kids are going to get out of here some way, somehow, but we shall see. I
agree with you. I think, I don't think all of them break out. I think a lot of them a few of them are going to die, but I think there might be one survivor. But I do... It's interesting, Calico, is that she's one of the subjects that is like kind of brought back every year, that they impregnate her and they use her in their experiments every single year. So some people that clearly they keep them for decades and decades and decades, Greg, and some people maybe that aren't compatible with the whole experiment, with the whole pregnancy. They either die in this process, or they're killed off, or whatever. They kind of weed through the good ones. I guess there has to be a certain something has to work in order for them to keep you in they call it the annual program. You sign up for an annual subscription and you get to hang out in this white room with the men in black and just get impregnated by aliens. It sounds like quite the subscription plan to get into.
Now I'm concerned. I'm very concerned about Kit Walker. What did they do to him?
Yes, that's...
when they beamed him up, did they put him through this program? What happened?
That's a great question. Yeah.
This throws in the trash our idea of Kit Walker coming back if he could only not age or show up if he was in the program, even though he had, remember, cancer. He was dying. So obviously, this is American Horror Story. It takes one line of dialogue to pretty much clear all that up. But still, I'm a little concerned now. It's gone down from like week 1 where we thought, oh, okay, it's 90% certain he's going to show up, to okay, 50. I've cut that in half at this point.
Yeah, there's no guarantee, but if he was to show up, I think it would be in this location, in this facility. We see him in the corner there. One of them goes over and talks to him. I don't think he's coming back to Earth anytime soon. But it is interesting, the difference between the asylum aliens is they seem to be more benevolent and like helping out, certain people in trouble, getting rid of his if they did get rid of his cancer. They resurrected Grace or Alma, right? Resurrected Alma. So it's weird. We haven't seen anything good on this side of the aliens. Like, what are they doing to help people on this version of them, or is it completely different species of aliens? I mean, we don't know if they're all from the same area.
It's also at the same time, remember, and I forgot too about the kids. Remember Kit Walker's kids? So remember, they came out, they weren't like half alien, half human. So there are a few chances where you could still see humans walking around, scientists. Again, Angelica Ross's character back in P-Town, she could be an alien too. So that's still up in the air. Humans can still be walking around looking like us, but it's, they live. Earth. Now, one last thing before we get out of here. We got a teaser for episode 9. We have more Mamie, more Eisenhower cover-up stuff going on, and of course, Cody Fern returns. Where are we going from here? And the episode's titled, of course, Blue Moon.
Yeah, Greg, Blue Moon. I looked this up. Blue Moon is actually like an additional full moon within that subdivision, that part of the year. So there's an extra full moon. That's where the expression comes from. Like once in a blue moon. Something doesn't happen that often. Very rare. And then on IMDb, there's no character name for Cody Fern, who we're extremely excited that he's returning. But I saw some rumblings on the internet, some people on social media like talking about he might be Valiant Thor, which is like this. The legend goes that in the late 50s, Valiant Thor was an alien that came from Venus to visit Earth, and basically made a deal with the U.S. government. This is some sci-fi craziness right here.
Twilight Zone. This is Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I love that idea. And then in the trailer, you also see like, you've been waiting for me. And you also see him kind of use some powers, some telepathic powers in the hallway as he's walking up into the Oval Office. So it kind of aligns with this legend, this folktale of valiant Thor, bringing news to the U.S. government or making a deal or basically an ultimatum or something. And then we also know off of YouTube that Buzz Aldrin is going to be featured in this episode as well. Now, you mentioned earlier, Greg, the race to space.
Race.
Yeah, the space race is going to be going down in this episode. So I think that there's going to be some more contact with the aliens, either physically in space or basically, given the technology, another conspiracy might be used here in American Horror Story, like, the moon landing was all, a fabrication. So I think that
we're show up.
I think we're heading this direction where we're going to see the Americans kind of get another upper hand, another assist by the aliens to kind of win the race to space and kind of become the global dominance that they became.
Remember, when Eisenhower left office in 1961, he said America today is the strongest, most influential, and of course, most productive nation in the world. Okay.
Shout out to the aliens, Greg. That's what he really meant. He wanted to give props to the aliens and the technology they helped out with. But there's a lot to think about after this episode. I like where the direction's going. I love the black and white, like old school footage. I love that whole storyline. The Ivy Leaguers, Greg. I don't know about the Ivy Leaguers. They're kind of,
they're growing on me. They're growing on me, and also, because this whole storyline where they took it is insane. So I'm fine with this. This is awesome.
more Leslie Grossman, please, and excited for Cody Fern to show up. But guys, hit us up in the comments if there's anything we missed or anything you want to talk about. Thank you so much for the love and support on YouTube. And we will see you next week with an episode 9 breakdown.
I look forward to this episode turning into a conspiracy theory thread in the comment section. I can't wait. Let's do it.
Drop all your conspiracy theories down below, please.